It's about time you take another trip abroad. Right now he's in Germany. I don't know if providentially Gado has actually drawn this to just indicate that now it's still a globe trotting as far as floods is concerned. And State House is water everywhere. But anyway, on a more serious note, of course, we know that how counties, 33 of them, have been adversely affected by the floods as it is right now. We have 17 lives that have been lost through this devastations from the floods. And now dignity kits are being called for to try and help families that have been affected by this. This is a serious state of affairs as it is, and the weatherman continues to advise us that this will continue until next year. And also the World Meteorological Department has also advised that the El Nino will continue apace until 2024 April. So we're in for it. We have to take precautions. Don't cross over bridges or roads that have been submerged in the waters. You don't know the undercurrents, how heavy or how impactful they are. This is Gado Today. Also, it's not us. This is accusatory finger that or fingers are being pointed at to Uhuru Kenyatta, right, for the current state of play as far as administration of the government is concerned. You can see from the CS of Kenya Power, and not really the CS of Kenya Power and Lighting, but the Kenya, that is Roads and Public Works, with, excuse me, with the recent power blackouts. This is what Ozone is trying to depict here, and also Majority Leader of the National Assembly, amongst other leaders from Kenya Kwanza. And it's the same story here, and when Jiku is wondering who is being blamed, why is it Uhuru Kenyatta for all these baggages that are actually atop the ramshackle of a vehicle here as depicted by Stano, which is depicting the current administration as well. And we have Victor in the Daily Nation. The many mirrors there, everyone is trying to steer this particular car. As you can see it also, the floods have eaten away from these particular roads right now. This are editorial cartoons. We had Dan Manzo wanting to comment on that. But Farah Malim also, you wanted to say something regarding the prayers as well, briefly, before we buckle down to some serious politics.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, Dibal.
And by the way, sorry, I wanted to say sorry for, I know the main entrance to this has adversely affected you this morning.
That's okay. You guided me very well, and I eventually found my way here.
Fantastic.
But anyway, you see the contradictions and the hypocrisies in this world has been there for the longest, and for as long as the narrative always is to try and belong to another club, we will never get anywhere. Mm-hmm. The prayer breakfast itself was being done in the US, not because through God and prayers that the war was won. The war was won because America dropped bombs, nuclear bombs, atom bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the Japanese surrendered. Otherwise, in the ordinary infantry war, the Japanese were winning. They won all of Southeast Asia. And at the same time, while they're doing a prayer breakfast and praying to God, the same Republican senators and congressmen were racists, basically lynching the veterans, the GIs who fought, the black African-American GIs who fought in the war and came back, were again being discriminated because of the racism. That's why Martin Luther King had to do a good, almost 20 years later, go out there and seek the very basic civil rights, including voting rights for the black men and women in that country. So when you see some of these things, it's always has another connotation. Mm-hmm. That was the God, the Christian, the Christ of the white race, who is depicted as white, who is basically there, and the black and the lesser, what do you call, humans that time. We were colonized, we've been colonized at that time. Mm-hmm. and the African Americans were being racially profiled and literally could not even drink from the same fountains as the white was drinking. They could not walk on the same side of the road. I mean, racism was as rampant those days. It's still there in big measure, but a little bit moderated. So when we as Africans, people who came from slavery, people who came from colonization, people who are basically exploited now to the hilt, we are where we are when we still own the richest continent in the world. We're still in poverty. because of the designs of the same people who enslaved us, who colonized us. But again, you know, like Kenyatta said, the white man came, we had the land and he had the Bible. He told us to pray, close your eyes and we pray. And by the time we opened up our eyes, he had our land and we had the Bible. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then basically, who is religious now in the West, if I may ask you? With all this LGBTQ and everything else. And you know, it's a massive one conspiracy after other conspiracies. But unfortunately for us, you know, people who have had the brunt of, borne the brunt of all forms of discriminations for the longest, for hundreds of years, we still have to learn where we are, where we're coming from, and decide where we want to go. You know, those are the kind of things. You know?
Indeed, indeed. Thank you. All right, let's just, Danmas will come to you, of course, with that rebuttal that you wanted to give on the editorial cartoons and Uhuru Kenyatta. But I wanted just to more deeply go to what the senators are doing, especially Tabitha, who just jetted in from Kakamega yesterday. They have been probing Oparanya and now the freezing of his assets as well with the ESCC. Tell us, what have you picked up so far, or is it a matter of a report that you have embarked on that? And we have also Kilifi County as well, that we have now the Senate Speaker as well, who is being probed or will be probed because of issues to do with financial malfeasance as well, and under his watch. Give us the current report.
Dibal, let me start by saying that one of our key mandates as Senate is to do what we call oversight. It's one of our main roles, and oversight to the, especially to the county governments. Now, the issue of Kakamega County is just a total coincidence because the committee that I represent as the vice chair is the Committee of Finance and Budget in Senate. The senator, Honorable Halwale, the senator of Kakamega County, had done a statement on the floor of the House seeking to be informed on all the pending bills of Kakamega County. This process has been there for the last 5 months. We asked the Auditor General, the Control of Budget, the county government of Kakamega, the executive, to be able to share with the committee all the pending bills. Verification was done. So what happened apparently, coincidentally, because the issue of the former governor of Kakamega came to media the other day in terms of his assets had been frozen. And apparently, coincidentally, our schedule to visit Kakamega County was yesterday. It was completely just a coincidence on a report that we are concluding, we are on the tail end. What had come to light was that there were some contracts that had been, paid and purported to have been completed, yet that was not the case on site. So we went to physically have a look and see. One of the cases was the roads issue. And we visited the roads. It was to be tarmacked, it was not tarmacked. But in deeper verification of it, then we realized actually it is just the part payment that was done to the contractor, the first initial 10% that was done, because there's a lot to be done, and also the total sum for the project, for the road project, which is supposed to be tarmacked, is amounted to 448 million. What the contractor has been paid is 95 million. What had been tabled before the committee was that this road was worth 95 million. It was paid and it was supposed to be tarmac, and it was not. So there was some bit of wrong information as far as that issue was concerned. But we were able to have a sit with the governor, with the current governor, Honorable Baraza, and ask the members of the committee openly, as we always do in Parliament.
Allow me to just report. So we have the 95 million shillings that is worth, the construction of that particular road, and you say is misinformation. Was this deliberate misinformation that is underreported, and yet your report and the books, the information is diametrically different?
Correct, because yes, because what was perceived from what we received, because you see, when information is tabled, it's until it is verified, one through the auditor, or even us as senators being there physically to witness and get to see the reality on the ground. So when we got to the ground, things were different. What the county explained was that, and what they tabled in terms of all the procurement documents was that this road was issued to this contractor, amounting to 448 million. These were the kilometers. This is what was supposed to be done. When we visited, actually, the contractor has done a good job because he has done the first phase, the Maramin, which is the first initial phase before you start doing the tarmacking. And that is what had been done, and that is what had been paid. But what had been perceived was different. So in short, we clarified. Although our emphasis was the issue of the pending bills, because we realized that governors, when they come in, it is more to what they want to pay. And Kenyans are suffering, suppliers are suffering, people are being auctioned day in, day out because of a decision of an individual deciding that I'll pay or I'll not pay. There's the issue, of course, of the what we call the air, kulipa hewa. And that is why we have the committees in each and every county that are called the Pending Bills Committee that are thoroughly getting in and verifying. Is this contract genuine? What are the procurement documents? Were there, final approvals that delivery was done or service was done? Or if it's a tangible product, you can be able to see it's something that was delivered. You can be able to see, because we are really having a thorn. And the last time I think we were here, we talked about we're having a thorn, a big ghost, an animal called the pending bills, and that is what as Senate we are trying so much to be able to ensure that we as we keep on asking for the national government to increase the revenue to the counties, then we should also see that we are not dipping further to the issue of the pending bills. The other week we had the county government of Vihiga, and the pending bills is amounting currently to about 1.3 billion. Vihiga received about 5.3 billion. So why are we still sinking into debts? Then we continue killing devolution if the governors are not going to wake up and realize then this ghost needs to be eliminated, because the decision is not for the Senate. It is for the governors themselves. And it's something that, it is then affecting the economy within the different counties, the way things are. So the issue, back to the issue of Oparanya, it is different from what we had gone to execute. And there are so many other issues, yes, that are still, when we are winding up our report, we'll be able to bring to light. But what we emphasize when we're on the ground, we requested the current governor to put a schedule, to put a priority to the pending bills, and to be able to sort and clear. If it is a genuine pending bill, let the suppliers be paid, because they've suffered enough. There's no point of a new supplier who's just supplying, was supplied yesterday, is being prioritized, and the one who has been there, it's genuine, they are suffering up to now. It's very unfair. So those issues are quite very different, and that is not what it was, just a total coincidence of what is happening. But as you know, our committee, finance and budget, this is one of our key mandates as far as the pending bills issues are concerned. Indeed.
Yeah. All right, let's hear from Dan Mazo, first of all, and we want just to delve deeper because of time as well on this issue of politics of fuel. Now I understand EPRA also is going to review their levies, and that is bound to also make the fuel prices to go up. This is the letters that we are receiving so far. When will we see an end to this? Because we have all this debate about government to government that is coming to fore. It's become a very serious issue where we have also the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is calling for 2 CSs to step down, and because they've not been really forthcoming in terms of transparency to tell us what is the details. The president has been categorical that we have documents in the public gallery, and we've been asking legislators if they're privy to this document regarding this revelations that also was being put across the social media by Senator Okiya Omtata. So where are we headed in this politics of fuel? And do you think the 2 CSs should resign from your estimation?
Well, I think they should resign. Recently the president was asking ESCC to investigate a CS and a CEO. By the time you're being investigated by ESCC, so long as the offense you have committed is so blatant and can be seen on the face of it, then it means if things are so clear, then the best thing one can do is to resign. If you look at this 17 billion saga, the lady Anjeri even claiming to have been hijacked, and the whole saga ends up being that she's not the one. There are other people behind it. There's no way such a matter can take place without the knowledge of the minister in charge of energy and without the knowledge of the minister in charge of Treasury. And though one may mislead the other. And that's why when Churchill went home, he found himself in trouble with Wananchi, because every Kenyan knows that there is a problem with the cost of living. And it goes back to the Finance Act. It goes back to levies which are put in the Finance Act. They added 8%. President Uhuru Kenyatta left it at 8%, then now it has been doubled by Finance Act at 16%. We went to court on this Finance Act, and on 28th, we are expecting a judgment on whether some of these levies are right. But again, IPRA should not have a free will to decide. You see, when you have taxes or levies, they must go to Parliament for determination, and there must be public participation. But unfortunately, IPRA has been acting illegally. It's given some leeways, sort of, to decide things. If it is market forces, they control themselves. You don't need IPRA to control market forces. So I think the law has been abused as far as IPRA is concerned, and that has gone unaddressed. Although we try to address it in the constitutional reference of the Finance Act, and in fact raised an issue of contempt of court by IPRA. And I believe that the judges say they will rule that altogether. And I believe when the judges do so, we are going to get probably IPRA getting cautioned, or this idea of contempt of court be dealt with in terms of the operations of IPRA. So I believe, although everybody is presumed innocent, unless their case is heard and determined, we want to presume all of them, innocent. But one of the steps to do, one should step aside so that investigations are carried, and if they are cleared, then they go back. If they are not cleared, then they get prosecuted. Right now, there is overwhelming evidence that there has been a breach of the law, a very serious one. There has been, misuse of public funds, and whether for governors or for CSs, this is a personal responsibility under the Constitution. The funds under anyone, you have to be personally liable, and you have to personally account so that the nation moves on. So I believe there's some things to be explained there. And honestly, when you have ministers who are errant, and then the president sacks them or takes action against them, it means they are acting together. If you are the boss and your people are misbehaving, you have to be seen doing something about that. If you are not doing something, or you seem to be supporting them when they are wrong, then it means you are together. Therefore, something has to be done urgently. As much as possible, the president cannot be prosecuted while in office, so the ministers can. And the president will be dealt with as soon as he's out of office.
Farmalim, Article 223 has been mentioned very clearly as one of the articles that the Ministry of Finance had invoked to give it power to spend money and seek parliamentary approval later. Yes. And this government-to-government deal, we've been asking the question, what was the emergency for us to enter into government-to-government deal? That we know when it comes to government-to-government deal, it is always shrouded in secrecy. Have we seen an abuse of Article 223 before? Because also, when you look at the contract that Telecom Kenya had also with Helios, also that was done previously without the approval of Parliament. At what point is the executive allowed to surpass the approval of Parliament when it comes to crucial parliamentary appropriations, like what we do have with the 17 billion shillings that was not approved by you, and it should be done later? Is it on the cases of emergency?
The approval is conditional.
Approval is conditional.
It's conditional.
Can you educate us?
The expenditure, the appropriation, the treasury can spend, but then there must be certain conditions for them to proceed on without seeking the approval of the House.
But what really constitutes for that particular call to be made?
No, we see, let me tell you, it's very, if you maybe let me see.
It is 223 there.
Just a moment. The approval of Parliament for any spending under this article shall be sought within 2 months after the first withdrawal of the money, subject to clause 3 You know what clause 3 says? Okay, 1, and all this allows them to do this expenditure. If Parliament is not sitting during the time contemplated in clause 2, or is sitting but adjourns before the approval has been sought, the approval shall be sought within 2 weeks after it sits next.
So one condition is the Parliament could be in recess.
If the Parliament is in recess, of course.
So of course now we cannot pass any approval.
Yes.
But under aside from that approval or recess, what really constitutes for a government-to-government deal to be done? Is it in the case of emergency, or as I'm trying to
the G2G deals?
Yes.
You have to understand the genesis of the G2G deals. The G2G deals were basically introduced in place as a way of trying to cushion countries against those very high costs of fuel. Because when you have a G2G, you're being given this fuel at a cost below the market cost. It's government to government.
Correct.
And I remember very well, way back, I can't remember if it was under Obasanjo, or I can't remember who it was under. The Nigerians gave that window to many African countries. And the idea was that we'll give you 50,000 metric tons annually, but at a much more reduced price, to allow these African countries and emerging economies also to have a less cost for fuel, or any of the oil producing countries. So you can't have a G2G, what do you call deal, that essentially makes our consumers pay above the market price or the market price itself. You better study the genesis of this government to government. Government to government is supposed to be cheap oil by the producers, oil producers, to other economies, to cushion them against those, what do you call, escalated prices. That was the wisdom of it in the first place.
So
now, what is this G2G we have right now? What is the cost itself? Is the market cost? Is the way below the market cost? If it's way below the market cost, then it should either reflect at the pump level, or that fund itself must be accumulated into another basket that essentially cushions against other areas, like the food subsidies or whatever it is supposed to be. But those are essentially designed to assist the economies of those emerging third world countries that are not oil producing. Now that we have the spirit and the object of this principle of G2G itself, let us go backwards and see how our G2G was executed in the first place. And where did the benefits go, and how much was the benefits? You get my point?
Yes.
So these are the kind of things that you have to look at now.
Now that's what we want to interrogate. So
yes.
If at all that we know that there was a fixed premiums that we've entered into,
yes,
that is cushioning us even now to adjust the market rate of all the prices that is going on. We can't benefit from the prices drop of the barrel of oil. We still remain on the fixed premiums.
Yes.
What is the lead time that we have when we're making this negotiation with the government to government and the reflection of the prices to the pump? Because now we have a deal we've made. This is what people are questioning. And as you say, we are supposed to be actually accruing the benefits from these particular deals right now since it was made. We have a huge tranche of money that is being paid to the Saudi contractors, but we can't see that reflecting on the pump. What we're hearing as well is that even the EPRA is considering raising the levies as it is, so that we can actually generate more revenue.
Let me tell you one thing.
I wanted just to know, what is the lead time? Is there any...
I don't know, but I think because of the sensitivities of such matters, there is no lead time. The government has got to have the policy straight out immediately and say, this is what we're getting at the price, this is the savings in this basically it is, and it's going to be either passed on to the consumer at the pump stage, or this fund is going to be used for something else.
Okay.
It will be accumulated into a basket, and this is what we intend to use these funds for.
So that's
plus exactly how much did we buy it for? I mean, how is that they call it Mabel, something like that. How much is that? How much benefits do we have in that G2G deal itself, as opposed to buying from the market. You see what I mean? Buying from the international global market itself. How much are you paying for this? What's the global, what do you call it? What are the numbers, the global numbers right now at this stage, this day, when we are going into this G2G?
All right. So why is the information not really forthcoming when it should be transparent? Is it because it's a government-to-government deal? If the president says that we have all the information in the public gallery, this is what I've been asking, and we're calling out for the CSs. Raila is saying, can we have the deal made public so that everyone knows what we entered into and why we're not benefiting from it right now?
Dibal, let me start by looking at the article 223, which you had actually asked just earlier, and it's very clear. And I like it because you always put the Constitution here for us, that supplementary appropriation, subject to Clause 2 or 4, the national government may spend money that has not been appropriated if the amount appropriated for any purpose under the Appropriation Act is insufficient. Just up to that point before you even continue, and it is clear that what had been appropriated by the National Assembly was 5.9 billion. It's even very clear in your newspaper today. So this amount, 5.3, was not enough. In that particular event, then, appropriation is done by National Treasury because it is clear, and that is why you are also able to pick as a media that Article 223 is what the minister used to be able to appropriate. And then it's also very clear, as Mheshimiwa Farah had even put it, after, within 2 months, when either Parliament resumes or within those 2 months, then that appropriation is done as per the deficit that is needed or was in place. That is just to start with. Now, on the issue of the information, still this same Constitution that we uphold is very clear that information should be clear, especially government information should be accessible. I think if Manzo would help me, it's about in article around 190 or 193, whereby it is clear that information or documentation should be given to the public. This is public information. And if anybody would write, even you as a media, if you would write to be able to get this information in terms of the G2G agreement, it is there. It's not private. Government is not a private company. It is for the public, and it is accessible. As long as you ask it, then you get it. So I don't see why our leaders from the opposition, or the leaders from the opposition, would just come out and start talking about where is this information. It is there. It is the public domain, and most of them have been privileged to be members of parliament, and they know the procedure is just to write to the relevant institution and get the information that is needed, instead of just crafting your own issues to give to the public the wrong information.
But,
number two.
All right. Before we go to number two, I thought maybe it is the incumbent upon the government, if there are queries which are being raised.
Correct.
And we have different channels that you do have as government, for you to have a communication channel with the public that you speak to. Just a moment. So that when you have these queries that people are saying, where is the information? If you have information, what is preventing you to come and hold a press conference and say, these are the facts, this is the deal, this is how it was meant to benefit Kenyans, and this is the current state of play, this is where we are at. And if at all there was a lead time that we expected the fuel prices to actually be reflecting, we are given a timeline that this is where it's going to happen in this particular date. I mean, there's a whole schedule on how this particular contract has been entered into. This is what every Kenyan is asking. It's very simple. Why should you also be giving the opposition, a field day to come and castigate the entire deal if you know there is transparency with it? We have the government spokesman, for heaven's sake. Just a moment. We have the government spokesman, for heaven's sake. Yeah. He will come and tell us that the president has been globetrotting, and these are the benefits that we are accruing from those particular trips. What prevents the information being delivered also by the government spokesman on this?
Dibal, and let me just start by putting it like this. We cannot be here on KTN if you do not invite us. So we cannot continue whereby leaders go to the media and keep ranting and then expect then there'll be information or a feedback. There is a process. There's the official way of seeking for information and documentation. And what I'm simply trying to say is that they can write. They have also members of parliament who represent the same coalition. They are free. They have more even access to be able to write and write down the issues that they need to be addressed officially. We cannot be a government of addressing each other on the media. That is not the right way to do things. It is correct for them to write, seek information of A, B, C, and D, all the constants that you're talking about in terms of the lead time factor, the cost issues, the percentages, and everything in place. Who are the companies, who are the directors, and everything that is needed, so that that information is relayed officially, so that even you as the media house, you can be able to give them airtime when they are reading an official document signed by the relevant authority, signed by the relevant personnel, in terms of this is the correct feedback. And let me tell you, Mark, and members of parliament can even agree with me. When we are executing any issue in parliament, we cannot execute if that particular document is not signed by any relevant authority, because you don't prosecute information when there is no ownership. We have even committees whereby, depending on an issue, the person takes oath. So this is per our constitution and per as the guidance that is needed, so that when you are dealing with a matter, it is a matter that it is owned from an institution, or it is owned by the relevant personnel who is in charge of that particular institution. So Dibala, I cannot agree when you say the opposition is there out there ranting and saying this and this needs to be done, and then now we come and say, oh, this. We cannot operate like an institution that has no structures, that has no correct way of delivering the information. It appears to me that's how you've been operating.
It appears to me that's how you've been operating. Because if there is this concerns, you using the church as a podium to actually have a rebuttal to the opposition.
The correct way is for the leaders to be able, as I've explained, to be able to ask the right information in the right procedure and get the right feedback in the right way.
All right, let me come to Honorable Dan Manzo. So why is it then that you're not really following the proper channel as is being put here by Honorable Tabitha? Because it seems also you're just having the press conferences, they're asking, can you have the proper channel of accessing this information? You have the access to information rights right now that you can go to any office to get this particular deal brought to bear. Well, can you inform us what you've done as opposition so that...
Honorable Mtata has followed up, and I found this deal is dubious and it is wanting, and he is now in hold of that information. What my good friend and Senator Tabitha should know is that even in Treasury, we have a lot of people willing to give information which is asked for, as it required under Article 36 of the Constitution. So this information is lying there, how the Minister for Energy and the Minister for Treasury may have colluded in a dubious deal where you saw a lady be paraded as a billionaire who has been trading in this oil, and we had even a ship coming to dock, and things leaked out, and this story is trying to be hidden. So the truth of the matter is investigations need to be carried out. And for you to be investigated as a minister, you have to step aside. You cannot be investigated while in office. Once you are cleared by the investigation, and we have ESCC to investigate, we have DCI who can investigate. No one is above the law, and we know there has been suspicions on the dealing. And the outcome of all this is Kenyans are suffering. The government pretended that it is going to save the costs. The costs have escalated. So time must be given for investigation to lie. But the information which has been flashed out by Senator Mutata right now is that the deal is dubious. Kenyans have been shortchanged, and Article 223 has not been applied appropriately. It is true the amount of money allocated was 5.9 billion, and it is true that the oil which was coming in was 17 billion. There is a very big disparity, which must be explained to the National Assembly as soon as possible, and why they took that decision. In any event, last week, they were doing committee of supply. They did, appropriation has been done afresh, and you know, there has been changes, you know, reductions and additions to reorganize the whole budgeting of the country. That was just done last week. So that information should have been supplied then. But still the law gives a minister that leeway for the benefit of the nation. The question is it be done for the benefit of the nation, or is it be done for the benefit of individuals? And if there is a single individual stealing in government, is it going to be covered there? That individual must face the law if the president is serious and if his systems are serious on fighting corruption. The biggest problem in this debate is corruption, and which is state managed, which is skewed by the state, and which is even budgeted corruption. So the moment you have that, it has to be unearthed, and the President Ruto must be willing to let Churchill go. If he doesn't want to let Churchill go, then they are bound together, and they are going to go together. This is not the first time a president has served one term. You know what has happened to Wenda? You know what has happened to Trump? You know what many other presidents in the world have served one term for failing to give information to the public and for allowing corruption to go on and for allowing cost of living to become very high and mistreating Kenyans. So Kenyans are up in arms about this, and they want cost of living to be
Honorable Pharaoh,
reduced.
let me just raise a concern, because I have a niggling worry for my country or myself when we're talking about a country where we have a 17 billion shillings fuel deal, and that is docking in our ports, and no one has no sodding idea where it's coming from. It really goes to show that if maybe we have just made, taken for a ride, or we just made to be monkeys, playing monkeys on us, so that we don't understand, how does a whole country that has a very astute national intelligence, just a moment, cannot track this ship that is coming, that is holding these huge metric tons of oil, worth 17 billion shillings, and no one has sodding idea on who Anjeri is? First of all, even when we're talking about security, isn't that a security threat to us? Save if it was not really oil and we say there were weapons, that you have no sodding idea. Everyone is contemplating and asking, who is this Anjeri? And we even have the mother coming to the fore and say, oh, I didn't know my daughter is such a wealthy billionaire. I have no idea. We haven't spoken for 6 months. Now see the revelation, even has, she's shocked. You go to this enterprise, it's a very shaggy dog story. We cannot have any clues. Claims are here. Okio Mtata comes and says, hey, you know, the government is aware of what was really happening. There was a private enterprise that the consolidated fund was extracted from to pay this particular firm here. And the government comes and tells us they have no idea. We have the Kenya Ports Authority also, leaders coming and holding a press conference. They have no idea. We have here, in today's Standard, claims are now emerging that the increased allocation was used to acquire the controversial diesel cargo, which is being claimed by the little-known Anjeri of An's Import and Export, as well as Galana Oil, and one of the largest oil importers, which is also involved in a government-to-government oil import deal. If this deal is clean, why do we have a poster child of Anjeri to actually be a collateral? This is akin to what we've had before with the National Youth Service, where we had Kafura being the face of actually that particular case all over when they were being interrogated by the National Assembly. So are we taking Kenyans for a ride and actually, underestimating the intellectual acuity that we can see through the lying teeth of the government when it comes to Anjeri?
Let me tell you, Dibal, this G2G has been there for the longest.
With transparency?
No, there has never been any transparency on G2G. I tried myself to do that business, I can't remember, about 25 years ago, and hit a brick wall. This is something that has been used by all subsequent governments that came in there. The way they negotiate the G2G at a discounted price, but then make sure they flog it into the market, and it's like any other importation of any oil. Now, it's been there when I was there as a deputy speaker. It's been there it's always been there. Can I just explain?
What I want to understand is, why is it there? Because
it's there because this is supposed to help. I told you the genesis. I told you the spirit and the object of the creation of G2G was to cushion third world poor countries against that very high oil prices from 1973. You know, oil used to go for $2 per barrel, but it went all the way to $150 per barrel. Correct. So the developing countries could not manage it, and the OPEC countries those days wanted to keep the third world countries, and I remember there was a 73 war, the Arab-Israeli war, and when King Faisal used oil as a weapon, and instantly oil came from nowhere to all the way to the roof. That's how he got killed. King Faisal of Saudi Arabia was killed because he used oil as a weapon. He used oil right now to dictate to the world, to the so-called developed world. That was the creation of OPEC and the rest.
Right.
But because they wanted the support of third world poor countries that were imagined, that wanted to industrialize, that wanted to build infrastructures, they said, don't worry about these things. You are consumers of a very small percentage. We will give you this G2G. But we'll make sure the West, the developed industrialist West, is going to pay through the nose. Now, this is the genesis. You have to understand. Now, you see,
I don't dispute this G2G.
Can I just say something? Yes. You see, the problem with the media, the problem with the political class, the problem with many people is that we do not do sufficient research. We go for sensational things. Right. We basically go for sensational. Oh, this has happened. And then that's all. The suspense. That's what we're interested in. Now, what I want you to do is take time, go back, look for some of the very powerful oil operators, some of them very elderly now. I know of a few myself who used to work with Shell, with Caltex, and the rest of them. They'll be able to volunteer some of this information to you, and then go back to the genesis, and then find out how much G2G did we do, and how did it end up. For the last, 35 years. It always used to end up in the pockets of the...
All right. I agree with that. We're not disputing. We're not disputing.
Can I just finish? It always used to end up in the pockets of the political privileged, political elite class that was... And this is a country where...
It ends up in the pockets.
Yes, always.
If you go back to the storied history of this.
Throughout.
Okay.
No, of the G2G thing itself. It always lined up the pockets of those people. It never went to the consumer. They got it cheap, and they sold it at the market price to their own consumers here. And the benefits always went to the political class that was there at the time. So even when Raila talks about it right now, in the manner he talks it, there's a bit of, I don't quite buy that. Ask him, how was G2G run during his time when he was there as a prime minister?
That's what I want to know.
Yes.
I just wanted to know.
But what I want you to do is that don't go for the sensational. Go back.
No, we're not going. No, I've done my research on this as well, and I wanted to just know.
Because you don't have this information that I have right now. You don't know what was brought into this country for the last 35 years.
Correct.
From 1973, or I can't remember, 77 or 78, when we got this benefit, up to now. Do you know how much came in and where it ended up? You don't have that information. You look for that information, you will find it somewhere. Yes. And find out where it ended up always.
Correct.
All right.
You see what I mean? Once you've got that...
That's why I have you here. So since you have this institutional memory, that's why I call you, so you can actually come and tell me.
Once you go back to that,
we have the benefit of where we're coming from. But I just want to ask you a simple question. Before you even hack back to 1973, asking you, first of all, in the previous administration, of course, we've been having oil issues. The one that we had was the scarcity of oil. And we saw on the subsidy, and the oil marketers complaining they've not been being paid. It was not issue of, the dollar, as it were. But I want you just to tell me, in Uhuru's administration, what government-to-government deal was made that we were not really aware of, aside from the SGR?
You were not, aware of the biggest corruption in this country
and the IBC.
The biggest corruption in this country and the biggest theft of public resources happened under one Uhuru Kenyatta. I'm telling you, just look at every programs and projects that were initiated under him and find out where the benefits went. Whether it is the subsidies, whether it is the G2G, whether everything that was done. By the way, these people, give them certain credit. I have my problems with them. There's a lot of corruption in this government, and I would want you to go out there and skin them alive. I have no problem with that. But the reality of the matter is that they found these coffers in this country empty because Uhuru cleaned them up. So when he comes out there and tries to talk to Kenyans about the way he talks, I get, who does it take this country for? All of a bunch of dimwits? You get my point? I mean, it's a problem. So that's why I'm telling you, go back to a lot of these things. Go back to the SGR. Go back to the expressway. And by the way, give him credit. For the last 5 years of Uhuru's government, 2 weeks after Uhuru was elected, Ruto had no authority or power in this place. He was kept on the sidelines on a permanent basis. Actually, to the point of being childish, because when you sit next to your deputy president and you only engage with Raila Odinga, who is on this side, and you ignore him in full view of everybody, and you can see this guy in a pensive mood, literally, it's like the whole world has come down to him. You're a deputy. Even basic decorum, basic dignity of a human being. Somebody who has gone to school would not behave like that. That's what you behave in maybe in secondary school or in primary school among different boys when they have different groups. And you know what I mean?
All right,
it was stupid.
All right, thank you.
To say the least.
All right. Before I come to...
Having said that,
yes.
I am not sanitizing anybody when it comes to corruption. This country has been corrupt from the head to the toe. By the way, let me tell you one thing. And I'm talking about right at the toe. One of the reasons why investors don't want to come into this country is that they employ technocrats, and all that they do is they steal.
All right, thank you.
You see what I mean?
Farah, hold it.
We have a nation of kleptocrats, from the president all the way down there, from the day we got independence until today. You see what I mean? Let's do something and interrogate all those things in a holistic manner and deal with it.
All right.
Instead of cherry picking.
Instead of cherry picking, I'll come back to you because I wanted just to interrogate all these deals, as you say, that Uhuru Kenyatta had actually done, that were, in a way, having his clammy fingers to just pilfer from the public coffers. I wanted to ask, was there any deal that was touching directly on oil, aside from the subsidies that we had, that was cushioning Kenyans? And then when we had the administration coming, we pulled away the subsidies, and people were saying the subsidies were not really sustainable.
This is where
just a moment, because that was directly affecting the fuel. And we know when you touch on the fuel, you touch basically the bane of the country, because everything spills out from the cost of power, the cost of energy, as it is right now. I wanted just to know, even from Kibaki, what was the government-to-government arrangement around the fuel? If at all, because we had the same. Can I just have Tabitha answering that? Because we had the same issue of the dollar losing against the shilling losing against the dollar when we had Professor Ndungu as the central bank governor.
Who was the biggest beneficiary of that? And who was the minister for finance at that time?
We'll interrogate that. So we want to know how come that was happening during that particular tenure. It is here also sort of a nostalgic thing that we're going through, even from that previous administration. What government-to-government deal was done during Kibaki's time regarding fuel? That you're talking about the storied history of 73 years. We've always had this government-to-government. Tabitha?
Let me pick it up from where Mheshimiwa Faram has just left it. He says very clearly, kindly the media, and because I've seen it in the different media, this is the topic, this is the discussion. Kindly, you go get the right information. Even the question you are asking us right now in terms of what were the agreements, this feedback is simply from the correct institutions of the government, whereby you can be able to write. And Article 35, which I was asking my brother Manzo, is very clear on information held by the state. There is right to access to information. So the answers are right there, whereby you can be able to get the information in terms of all these government-to-government agreements that have been there way years and years back. As Mheshimiwa has put it, and I'm happy because he's one of our seniors, he's been in parliament way before, and he understands even how these processes had been done. So the information is out there. Media, can you just desist from wanting to depend on what Raila says? Why do you want to pick it up from what the opposition
I'll butt in and
says all the time, and not want to go back the ball and get the right information from the right institutions? Number two.
I can't just let that fly, because we have, even when you look, our reporter here, Macharia Kamau, has done all the work.
Yes. And
he's giving you all the details. You have it over there. Why do you then say, you look at this, what is put here, the unconstitutional withdrawn, further supplementary budget 396.15% increase in the appropriation in aid or money internally generated by the ministry. And we've seen this happening in the name of we're trying to cushion Kenyans against the rise of the dollar. So we're actually having this appropriation fund increased to cushion Kenyans on this particular regard. And I wanted just to ask, this is all tabulated here if you look at it kindly.
Dibal, with your question,
my question has been
on the agreements that have been
in
there.
fact, where I was actually heading and asking this particular question was the fact that when this particular deal was made, given the accounts that we have from Article 233 of the Constitution, was Parliament in recess? When we had the National Treasury bypassing the approval of Parliament, it was not in recess. Was there any emergency? Was there any emergency? Dan Mazo, was there any emergency? Because we go to these deals when there is an emergency in the country. And we've seen this being played out with the IBC, where we're in the crunch, they wait for the longest time, then they say, oh, you know, it is 3 weeks to elections. We have not put our ducks in a row. We need this equipment. We have to bypass and, you know, flout the procurement deals so that we can go to government, where all these details are normally hidden. That's why I'm asking two questions. First of all, was Parliament in recess that we had not to get the approval of Parliament? And secondly, what was the emergency? Dan Mazo, help.
No, I had not finished.
Okay, sure.
Be fair.
Okay,
I had not finished. And Dibal, you were asking us, because you give us the time to be able to respond. And you know very well I don't like interjecting, so that's why
I will interject where the information is not accurate, that you're responding to what Raila is saying.
But again, also,
But you have
Dibal, I have not talked
then
for
can
a
I
long time.
continue?
You will.
Your turn has not come, because it was just Mheshimiwa Faram, and then he came to me. And I've not even finished.
Okay.
So, I haven't said anything. Correct. Thank you, Mheshimiwa. And simply what Macharia, the journalist, has been able to capture is okay in terms of the treasury, the way he has been able to put in terms of the 5.9 billion allocation and then the 17 billion. That has been well tabulated in terms of the Article 223. That is okay. But your question, Dibal, to be very fair, was in regards to the agreements from Kibaki's time. And that's why I simply said, kindly, write to either Treasury, write to the Ministry of Energy, get the relevant documentation in terms of the agreements that have been there from years way back. Now, allow me to state this. When I listened to my colleague Maanzo, and when I'm trying also to listen to the media houses, it's coming out sort of like what Mtata has said, then that is what they are taking up, and because they are depending on what Senator Mtata has put across and done the claim. So themselves, it's an indication of what the other person says. That is what we take, and that is what we run. As long as it's affecting the government or it's negative, then that is what we just want to run with the government, instead of looking at the facts that have been there. Back to the issue of the 8%, in terms of being told that we are increasing taxes. The subsidy issue, 8% had always been paid by the previous government, according to them, paid in quotes, because the suppliers have come out and said to this current government that these payments have not been done to us. It was a subsidy in quotes because these payments were not done. We've not been paid up to now. These issues were there. And the current government is having now to budget to make these payments which were supposed to be paid previously. And that is why the president and through the ministry, they removed the issue of the subsidy 8%, which at the end of the day, Dibal, we still used to pay because we are still paying taxes. We still used to pay. So that is why it has been reverted back in the normal and initial way that is supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, this subsidy issue was not working. It was not making sense, and the debts were still in place. They talk about the issue of the CSS to go home. Then I ask simply, kindly, when our CSS are working and working very hard, CS Chirchir has been very competent in his docket. So one of our ministers, and also the Minister for Treasury, is one of the smartest guys. Professor Ndongo is very smart in his, because he's very averse in matters economy. And so when we have our smartest CSS working, then the opposition stands up and says they should go home. Where is the evidence of them stealing? If there is evidence of them stealing, then why don't you put it across and say, this is the evidence? Why do we want to come to our social medias? Why do we want to come to the national media and start claiming that people should just go home without evidence? Is that fair? It is incorrect. If you have evidence, then put it across and let it be fair. We cannot be now debating what the opposition is keeping on saying without any tangible evidence in place. The other thing, Dibal, at the beginning, you know, and you remember very well, if it affected you, because we used to line up in the petrol stations. People even used to go with jerrycans to be able to get fuel because magari imekwama kwa barabara. We could line up, we could make calls and ask, where is fuel? There was insufficient. It was not in place. And as we speak right now, there is continuous supply of the commodity. That is what is important. We do not, as Mheshimiwa Farham had put it in place, we do not determine the price from the suppliers. What the government has ensured that there are agreements that the terms of payments can be flexible, there can be continuous supply as long as these payments are done. And that is why you're seeing the Treasury is adhering to the payments that are supposed to be done. Lastly, on this issue of the so-called lady, Anjeri, you know, at one point, I had the opposition leader say, oh, even she doesn't look like, I mean, she has been in that business. It doesn't make sense. He came out and said about it. And then, again, the same people are coming out and starting to say that, oh, the government has stolen from this lady. So, where are we? We cannot be having conversations that are not even making sense. Kenyans are tired. We need, as leaders, to desist away from this political narratives. And the media, sometimes you need to be fair. Like even our case for Kakamega yesterday, it was perceived, oops, that because Oparanya had been there, now it's political, the senator. No, we were executing our mandate and we have been doing it for the last 5 months. Back to the issue of Njeri. You find that today, this is the topic. Tomorrow, it changes depending on how it suits them, depending on what they want to tell Kenyans. I can tell them, Kenyans are tired in terms of being told go to the streets. Because that is not the way. That is not the way to have solutions. People are tired. People have issues that they have to deal with each and every day, and people want to focus because nobody's going to come to your house and pay your rent. Nobody's come to your house to pay your bills. Things have to be executed, but the opposition and the media should the media should stop on trying to take advantage of what the opposition has said and try to pin it to those particular levels, and they should also move away from depending on, oh, Omtata has said this, so that is what we want to run with. Yeah. So the issue finally on the issue of Anjeri, it is what the minister has said. He has come out, and Mheshimiwa Chirchir has come out and explained that she had no dealing. She's not the owner of the particular oil in place. So this is just a narrative that is just being trying to be castigated so that it paints the government in a negative way.
All right, we take a short break right now. It's 8 o'clock on the nose. When we circle back, we shall hear from Dan Marzo as well. But the point across that is being put is that there is a challenge of communication, both from maybe the opposition and the response from government on clarity as well. If they could just be forthcoming with clear and transparent information as far as this deal is concerned, if the document is in the public domain, which is a holy grail anyway, that we cannot access it as well, then they should tell us.